guys, welcome back to another video with me at the Aspiring Home Cook. Today's recipe is another spectacular one. It is one that has been requested over the last few days by a lot of you lovely people that have been watching and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for supporting me. If this is your first time here, don't forget to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as well as click on that little bell icon right next to it so that you get notified every time we put up a new video. Today we're going to make guava cheese or Perad. Now guava cheese or Perad is one of those quintessential Goan Christmas sweets that everyone looks forward to around Christmas time. So let's quickly take a look at all the things you're going to need today. Today I'm going to make my guava cheese using tinned guavas. In Sydney it's extremely hard to find fresh guavas, so today that's what we're going to use. If you're lucky enough to find fresh guavas where you are, you simply find ripe guavas. They should be on the yellowish side, not the greenish side. They've got to be ripe but firm to the touch. They can't be squishy or mushy when you feel them. When you're using fresh guavas like that, all you do is you wash your guava, trim off that stalk portion. Any brown blemishes or overripe spots or bruises that you see on the skin, you need to trim that off as well. You cut the guava in half across the breadth. Then to cook it, bring some water to a boil in a vessel and add about 4 to 5 cloves in there. Once the water has come to a boil, you add those cut guavas and you're going to continue boiling those guavas till you notice the seeds protruding and bulging out a little. Once that's done, just scoop out the guavas from the water, reserve the water. You might need a little bit to grind it and to strain the seeds, and you proceed with the recipe. If you're using canned guavas like I am today, that whole first step of cooking the guavas gets eliminated. You're actually ready to start with your guava cheese. Today I'm using 2 tins, about 410 grams each. I've got 4 cloves over here, half a kilo sugar or 500 grams sugar, and you're going to need a little clarified butter or ghee. I find that when I use these tin guavas, the guava cheese actually has a beautiful color all of its own. If you'd like, you can add a little food color to your guava cheese towards the end of the cooking process. Before I start with the guavas, I'm actually going to grease my tray and set it aside. You don't need a lot of ghee, just a little bit to grease the tray. You can use as much or as little as that requires. So you're going to grease the sides as well, because your guava cheese or Perad is going to come up the sides of this tray a little as well. So we're going to start by draining our tins of guava. Now your next step is to de-seed the guavas. You're not going to waste any portion of these guavas. So what I do is, using a spoon, just scoop out that center portion. Make sure there's no seed left behind here. And you're going to pop these guava halves into one container, the seeds into another container right here. So all our guavas have been processed. I've still kept the syrup from the guava tins, just in case we need to use a little more liquid to deal with the seeds. You're going to grind your guavas to a paste. Just the guava halves. Pop them into the bowl of a mixer and process them till you're left with a nice smooth paste. You'll end up with a nice smooth paste like this. Now your next stage is dealing with the seeds that we took out of the guavas. Get yourself a bowl and a strainer. You're going to just place your strainer over the bowl and pop these seeds into your strainer. A little bit of that tinned liquid actually helps. If you're using fresh guavas at this stage, you can use a little bit of the water that the guavas were boiled in. And using a spatula or a spoon, you're just going to push all the pulp through the strainer, adding a tiny bit more water, or in my case the liquid from the can, as you need. You won't need very much. All you're trying to do is release all that pulp from the seed portion. Now, this is the pulp that we got from the seeds. At this stage, we're going to pour this into the vessel that we're cooking our guava cheese or our Perad in, and add your guava pulp as well. Into this, you're going to put in your cloves. Now remember, if you're using fresh guavas and you've boiled your guavas with the cloves in the water, you don't need to follow this step. This is just so that I still get the flavor of the cloves in these tinned guavas. And you're going to add the sugar. You're now going to turn the heat on. Place your pan on medium heat and you're going to stir that through. You can cook the guava cheese on a medium heat until it starts bubbling. Once it reaches that stage, lower the heat so that you don't burn yourself. Again, it's also handy to use a spoon with a larger handle so that you're away from all that bubbling and sputtering action from the pan. Now Goan Sweets, like you've seen before in my videos for milk cream and marzipan, I've mentioned that as well. They're usually notorious for taking a really long time to cook. Use a heavy pan for your cooking, as wide a pan as you can get your hands on, or even a regular utensil. Just make sure it's a wider one. The wider your utensil is, the less time it's going to take to cook. Don't forget to stir your mix now, because this can start sticking to the pan. My guava cheese has started to bubble. It's taken me exactly 9 minutes of cooking time to get to this stage. This cooking time will depend on the pan you're using and the amount of heat that you're using to cook your guava cheese. At this point, if you're a little worried about the guava cheese splashing, lower your heat and continue stirring. You will need to stir this really briskly. Make sure you're getting all the corners of the pan so that the guava cheese doesn't stick to the pan, the sides or the corners or the bottom, and burn. Alright, and you're going to continue this process till your guava cheese starts leaving the sides of the pan. So 5 minutes later, this is what the guava cheese looks like. It has thickened a little bit more. And I don't know whether you can see when I run the spoon on the bottom of the pan, it has just about started coming away. That does not mean it's done yet, but that it is thickening up, and you're going to have to continue cooking this for a little while longer. At this stage, if you're using cloves in the mix like I have here, I would fish them out of the mix now, because things will start moving pretty rapidly from now on, and you don't want to leave it right to the very end where it gets really difficult to handle. So I've taken my pan off the heat. Like you can see that bubbling has subsided a little, and carefully, be careful to not burn yourself while you're doing this. Take those cloves out. All the cloves are out. I'm going to scrape down the side of the vessel while I've got it off the heat. And we're going to return this back to the heat. Okay, make sure your heat is lowered at this point. You're on a medium low or a low heat. And you're going to continue the cooking process. It's been 11 minutes since we fished those cloves out of the guava cheese. And like you can see, the guava cheese has thickened a fair bit. I can even move it around in the pan like this. Don't play around too much. Make sure you're stirring it thoroughly, otherwise it's going to burn. At this stage, I'm going to do my cold water test. Guys, I cannot stress how important that cold water test is. It will save you a world of anxiety and a world of grief when it comes to cooking and judging whether your sweet is ready and is cooked and will form. All I've got here is ice cold water. Water at room temperature is not going to work as effectively. It's got to be chilled water. Take a little bit of the sweet that you're making. In this case, today it's guava cheese. And you're going to drop that into that ice cold water and give it a few seconds to cool down and to set. When you fish it out, check and see if it has cooled completely. If not, give it a few more seconds and let it cool down. My guava cheese, like you can see here, is holding its shape fairly well. However, it's still a little too soft for my liking. It's not going to be very easy to cut. I'm going to give this a bare minute, maybe 2 at the most, on the heat again. And I'm going to test. I'm going to do another water test after those minute or 2 have passed. So I've got it back on the heat now, maybe for another 30 seconds to a minute to begin with. And don't take these 30-second increments lightly, guys. At this stage, it can thicken and set really quick. If you cook your guava cheese for too long, you're going to end up with really tough guava cheese that will be rubbery and difficult to bite. It will still be tasty. It's just going to be a lot chewier than it should be. Okay, at this stage I'm going to run another water test because it seems to me, I can feel when I'm stirring that this has thickened a little bit more. I'm going to quickly do another water test. Again, you've got ice cold water and a little bit of the guava cheese goes in that bowl. Remember, when you take your pan off the heat, there's still a fair amount of residual heat in that pan. So while you're waiting for that little piece of guava cheese to cool, give your pan an occasional stir so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. It has cooled down completely and it's holding its shape fairly well. It should be perfect to cut. I'm going to turn the heat off completely, and as soon as you've taken the guava cheese off the heat, you're going to pour it into that tray that you've lined with ghee or clarified butter. And using the same spoon, you're going to ease that over and spread that to as much as thick a layer as you'd like. Do it while the guava cheese is still warm so that it spreads evenly. I'm quite happy with the thickness that I've achieved by spreading it this much. So we're just going to leave this to cool, and I'll see you back once it's cool enough to cut into cubes. Just to give you a rough idea of the cooking time, I started cooking the guava cheese at exactly 11:19 today. It is now 11:49. So this quantity of guava cheese has taken me about half an hour to cook. The guava cheese has now cooled to the touch. It is still a tiny bit warm, but it's not hot really. It has set. So we're ready to actually cut them into little pieces. Before you cut it, you want to grease carefully. You can use a silicone brush or a pastry brush. You just want to grease the edge. You don't need to grease the entire blade. You need to grease closer to that edge of the blade. If you're not confident, please by all means use a brush to brush this on. As soon as you feel your knife starting to stick to the sweet, just put a little more ghee or clarified butter on that edge and you can continue. Then you turn your pan around, and I'm just going to trim that edge so that I get nice squares for the rest of the sweet. And there you go everyone, your guava cheese or your Perad is ready. Once the guava cheese has cooled down completely and set, you're good to actually move them and store them. Guava cheese has a much longer shelf life than some of the other sweets like your milk cream and marzipan. They'll last you a few weeks. If you store these refrigerated, they will last as long as a couple of months as well. You can see that it's still a little soft, but it's holding its shape really well. We've not refrigerated this at this point. The flavor of guava is spectacular, and you get that little hint of the cloves coming through. And I can tell you that this is not as sweet as some of the versions of guava cheese that you will find. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. As always guys, I will leave a link to the complete recipe down in the description box below, so feel free to go ahead and check that out too. If you know someone who you think will enjoy this recipe, or you know someone that wants to try making guava cheese at home this year, I'd love it if you could share this video with them too. And that's all for me today guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to see you really soon with another delicious recipe. Till then, take care. Bye.